All right, good morning. I'm Chief Daniel Slaughter of the Clearwater Police Department. I'm here representing the Pinellas County Deadly Force Task Force, and would like to cover an incident that we were investigating that started this morning. This morning at 3:38 hours, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department was dispatched to 2175 Indigo Drive, reference to a call from a resident who advised her ex-boyfriend was at the front door, armed with a handgun. This ex-boyfriend is Josue Arias, and I'm going to spell that Josue Arias. His birthday is 12/27 of 1988. He ultimately made entry into this residence. The two occupants of the residence, a female and a male, retreated inside two separate rooms. The female resident armed herself with a handgun to defend herself. Mr. Arias continued to, disrupt the inside, threaten the residents, make statements that were very concerning, that he was there for no other good reason than to do violence. Clearly had committed an armed burglary at this point of the this point of the case. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Department arrived on scene. They immediately set up resources in a tactical manner and were attempting to make conversation and to enter into a dialogue with Mr. Arias in an attempt to defuse the situation. At one point, the female occupant was able to come out of the residence. She had a handgun with her. She placed it down immediately, made contact with the deputies, and was escorted to safety. The event continued on for some time, with the Sheriff's Department trying to give very clear lawful commands through the use of a rescue vehicle that is used to provide some safety to the officers or the deputies, but also able for them to use a PA to give out clear commands. Mr. Arias did not follow these commands, and at one point, when the female occupant had exited the residence, she had left a cell phone with an open 911 call that was giving the officers the ability to hear some of the events as they were unfolding inside the residence. The deputies very wisely were able to pick up that them calling commands was actually agitating the suspect, and were very dutiful in trying to stop doing that in an effort to try to de-escalate the situation. However, at one point, Mr. Arias actually comes to the front door with the other male occupant and has the handgun, a black revolver as described by the witnesses, pointed at the male occupant's head. He eventually releases that particular person, and he is able to get away and make contact with the deputies and be escorted to safety. But then, unfortunately, Mr. Arias then retreats inside of the residence. While inside the residence, he makes very concerning comments about not wanting to go back to prison, that he's not going to go back to prison. Of course, that created a concern that this individual was intent on not letting the situation resolve itself peacefully. The deputies continued to try to negotiate and to get Mr. Arias to comply, but eventually essentially unsuccessful. Mr. Arias at one point then comes out of the residence. Prior to him coming out, in one of the previous encounters, he had seen at some of the locations where the deputies were deployed. As he came out of this residence, armed with a handgun in his hand, continues to move about the foyer patio area and walks into the yard and appears to be looking for the deputies and where their locations are, at which point the deputies neutralized the target and fired and hit Mr. Arias an unknown amount of time at this point. I would like to stress this is all very preliminary information. There's still a lot of work to be done, but Mr. Arias was deceased at scene. Was deceased at the scene, and the entire encounter from the moment the call came in and the first shot being fired was about 1 hour and 11 minutes. So there was an ample amount of time for Mr. Arias to surrender. Clearly, the deputies were fully, clearly identified, and unfortunately, this encounter occurred. We still have much to do in the investigation. As I said, this is all preliminary. The deputies that involved are being interviewed right now as we speak. The two residents that lived in the home are being spoken to as well. And we have several witness officers, deputies that we need to talk to as well. So it's very preliminary. We have a lot of body-worn camera footage that we still need to review and evaluate. Of course, the forensic process is just getting underway. The weather has hindered that a little bit, but there's a lot of work to be done with that as well. So I'm not sure there's too many questions that I can answer, but I will be more than happy to try to take a few if there are some. But as you're well aware, in Pinellas County, to provide the highest level of transparency and the highest level of accountability, we have a system in place through a memorandum of understanding. So how the Sheriff's Department is not an investigating agency in this. They are not have any type of investigative responsibility other than we use their forensic processing units to process the scene. The investigation team that is going to be looking at this incident will be underneath my command, and it will be led by Clearwater detectives working in cooperation with St. Petersburg Police Department detectives and Pinellas Park Police Department detectives. And we will continue to do that investigation and certainly provide more information as it becomes available and with additional details. Be more than happy to try to answer any questions.
You said he made comments about not wanting to go back to prison. Do we know his criminal history at this point?
Yes, he has a significant burglary history. He had committed several occupied burglaries and looked like he had maybe a total of 5 arrests throughout Pasco, Hillsborough with the Tampa Police Department, and 1 with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. The handgun that he's in possession early information is that he actually may have taken it or stolen it from this particular resident and victim as well. There is a domestic history, obviously an ex-boyfriend, and was something that's still that was unfolding with the application for an injunction that we're still getting into those details. So definitely stuff we're still looking for, but that's the Reader's Digest at this point.
Were those the only 2 people inside the house at the time?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Only 2 occupants were in the residence at the time. And the way the sheriff set up and even evacuated the neighboring houses, there was nobody else ever in danger.
Just to clarify, you said Arias came out of the home with his shotgun after the 2 people had been escorted to safety, and then deputies shot at him. Did he shoot first, or was he just armed at the time that the deputies shot him?
And if I said shotgun, it's because I'm really tired, but I don't think I said shotgun. It was a handgun, a revolver. No, at this time it does not appear that he shot first at the deputies. Now there was at some point during the interaction where we believe that Mr. Arias did fire his handgun 1 or 2 times. We're not sure at this point. However, the deputies fired in response to his reckless nature of coming out and looking for basically a firefight. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your attention and for weathering.
One more question. The officers that were involved, are they currently on paid administrative leave? Is that protocol?
I'll turn that over to the sheriff because
Okay.
that's more of a personnel administrative matter.
Okay.
Obviously, we are conducting a criminal investigation as our responsibility, and we will turn over that criminal investigation to them to use for any administrative purposes. But Sheriff, I'll let you speak to that policy.
So there's 4 deputies involved right now. They are being interviewed. It's all part of the ongoing criminal investigation, but those 4 deputies will be, as is routine, on administrative leave until they're cleared, which, for us will be, excuse me, just going through a short process.